Once upon a time, in a magical garden nestled at the edge of a bright and beautiful forest, there bloomed a magnificent rose. This was no ordinary rose. It was the most vibrant, the most brilliant, the most beautiful flower in the entire garden. It had deep crimson petals that glistened in the sunlight, and its fragrance was so sweet that even the bees and butterflies would hover around it in awe. This rose, known as Ruby, was proud of its beauty. It would always boast about how it was the fairest of all the flowers in the garden. "Look at me," Ruby would say to the daisies, tulips, and sunflowers around her. "No one can compare to my elegance and charm. I am the most splendid flower here. Just look at my petals, my color, my perfect shape. None of you could ever be as beautiful as I am." The other flowers in the garden, though they admired Ruby from a distance, were not so sure about her attitude. The daisies, who were simple yet graceful, smiled softly and continued to sway in the breeze, while the sunflowers, with their big golden heads, simply nodded in agreement, though they didn't say anything. The lavender, which had a calming scent, stayed quiet as well, content with its own charm. One day, as Ruby was proudly looking at her reflection in a nearby pond, the gentle breeze carried a new voice to her ears. It was soft, humble, and gentle. "Hello, Ruby." Ruby turned around and saw a tiny little wildflower, no taller than the grass, with pale yellow petals and a shy, tender appearance. It was the kind of flower you might almost miss if you weren't paying attention. This little flower, named Lily, stood humbly near the base of Ruby's stem. "Who are you?" Ruby asked in a haughty tone, her petals flaring slightly. "You're so tiny, and your petals are so plain. How could someone like you even speak to someone as beautiful as me?" Lily smiled gently. "I may be small, Ruby, but my beauty comes from within. I am not as grand or as vibrant as you, but I believe every flower has its own special magic. Even though you may be the most beautiful flower here, there is something even more precious than outer beauty: kindness and humility." Ruby's petals rustled, and she scoffed. "Oh, please, don't preach to me about kindness. Beauty is all that matters. You see, when the garden visitors come by, they'll stop and admire me. I'm the one they'll want to take home, not you. Who could possibly notice someone so simple?" Lily nodded, but her expression didn't change. "I understand how you feel, Ruby, but beauty fades with time. What remains is the heart of a flower." Ruby laughed, her petals glistening in the sun. "Oh, Lily, I don't need to worry about that. I am the most beautiful thing in this garden. My beauty will last forever." As days passed, Ruby continued to bask in the glory of her beauty, unaware of the wisdom in Lily's words. She would boast louder, and the other flowers would grow more quiet. Soon, they no longer responded to her arrogance. Even the wind seemed to blow more gently around Ruby, as if it too was tired of her boasting. One bright morning, a soft, wise voice came from above Ruby. It was an old oak tree that had stood tall in the garden for many years. The tree had witnessed many seasons, and its branches provided shelter to birds and shade to the flowers. "Ruby, I see that you are very proud of your beauty," the oak tree said. "But remember, beauty is not just about what is seen on the outside. True beauty comes from what lies within. You should not judge others based on appearance alone." Ruby, who was accustomed to receiving admiration from everyone, was taken aback. "What do you mean? I am the most beautiful flower in the garden. Everyone notices me." The oak tree chuckled softly. "Beauty is fleeting, Ruby. It fades with time, just like the seasons change. But kindness, love, and humility, these are the things that make a flower truly beautiful, not just for a moment, but forever." Ruby frowned. "You don't understand. I am perfect just the way I am." But despite her confident words, Ruby could not shake the feelings of doubt that began to creep into her heart. What if the oak tree was right? What if, one day, her beauty would fade, and no one would admire her anymore? Ruby couldn't stop thinking about this, and it made her feel uneasy. she decided to speak to Lily again. One afternoon, Ruby approached Lily, who was sitting peacefully near the base of a stone path. "Lily, I've been thinking about what you said," Ruby began slowly, her voice softer than usual. "Maybe you're right. Maybe beauty isn't everything." Lily smiled up at Ruby. "I'm glad to hear that, Ruby. You don't have to be the most beautiful to be special. Every flower has something valuable to offer. You, too, have a special gift." Ruby looked down at Lily, feeling a mix of sadness and curiosity. "What is my gift, Lily?" Lily's voice was gentle as she explained, "Your gift is your heart, Ruby. You have the ability to bring joy to others with your beauty, but you also have the power to inspire kindness with your words and actions. It's not just about being admired for your looks, it's about sharing love with the world." Ruby felt a warmth in her chest as Lily's words sank in. She hadn't realized how much she had been missing by only focusing on her appearance. Perhaps it was time for her to change. As the seasons changed, Ruby started to listen to the advice she had received. She stopped boasting about her beauty and began to admire the simple flowers around her. She complimented the daisies for their bright, cheerful faces, and she marveled at the lavender's calming scent. Ruby even took time to thank the bees for visiting her and helping her bloom. Slowly, the garden began to feel different. The flowers no longer felt overshadowed by Ruby's beauty. They felt appreciated. But then, one day, a sudden storm hit the garden. The winds howled, the rain poured down in torrents, and the sky grew dark and gray. The storm ravaged the garden, knocking over trees, bending flowers, and tearing petals from the plants. Ruby's petals were torn by the fierce winds, and her once vibrant color began to fade. When the storm finally passed, and the sun peeked out from behind the clouds, Ruby was left trembling, her petals bruised and torn. She had never felt so vulnerable. Lily, whose petals had been much smaller and more delicate, was still standing strong. She was battered by the storm, but her spirit remained intact. Ruby, looking at Lily, felt ashamed. "Lily, I thought beauty was everything, but now I see that it's not. I've lost my brilliance, and I don't know how to feel about myself anymore." Lily gently swayed in the breeze. "Ruby, you are still beautiful, not because of your petals, but because of your heart. The storm may have taken your beauty for now, but it cannot take away your kindness, your love, and your new humility. That is what makes you truly special." Ruby's heart filled with gratitude. She had learned the most important lesson of all, that true beauty lies in the way we treat others, not just in how we look. From that moment on, Ruby embraced her imperfections and shared her kindness with everyone in the garden. She no longer boasted about her looks, and she never judged others by their appearance. Instead, she became the heart of the garden, always encouraging and supporting her fellow flowers. As time passed, Ruby's petals slowly grew back, and she became more radiant than ever. But it wasn't just her outward beauty that had returned. It was her inner beauty, her newfound humility and kindness, that shone brighter than anything else. The other flowers admired Ruby, not because of her looks, but because of the love and care she showed them. Ruby had learned that true beauty is not in perfection, but in the love we share with others. And so, Ruby the Rose bloomed again, but this time with a heart full of love, humility, and kindness. She had learned that beauty fades with time, but kindness is forever. The garden was filled with joy and harmony, as all the flowers, no matter how big or small, bright or simple, knew they were special in their own way. And they all lived happily ever after.